Hello and welcome back to the Audacity Factor. My name is Kathryn Dawe. I'm the host and the founder here, and I am wanting to actually connect this video back to the last video from the original series. And it has to do with what I consider the epidemic of willful ignorance that's going on right now. Ignorance is always a choice. You get to choose whether you want to learn something new or whether you question your beliefs or your positions on things. It's always a choice to stand ignorantly in them on purpose. It's a different thing to, I think, to really truly believe and not question this whole theory of we've always done it this way. My family has always done this, whatever that may mean. I think it doesn't ever take into account the changes that have happened in whatever this period of time it is. It could be 100 years, it could be 50 years, it could be 20 years. Things change, and saying that doing things because that's the way your family's always done it, my family's always done this, or whatever it is, it's not only lazy, it's literally not having the desire to question either, whether it's even right for you personally. So I really see that these days, it's really a decision to remain willfully ignorant, almost stubbornly so. And this can be in any area of our life. We try to make something work or try to shut out any other opinions or belief systems or whatever that may be for you in whatever area that you literally are choosing to do things just because that's the way they've always been done. Or if you find yourself saying, I want to go back to the way things were. I have romanticized whatever a past, and it may be a past that you didn't even experience, was all about. That's really being willfully ignorant. And it is a choice. It's a decision that you make. And it can be one that maybe you don't even recognize that that's what you're choosing. It might not always be loud or obvious. And I think a lot of people hide from it as well, especially now. If you're only going to look at this one certain thing that supports this whole idea of this is the way we've always done it and this is the way it's always going to be, that literally is you putting blinders on because either you're afraid, and fear can show up in any number of forms. It can show up in aggression, it can show up in violence, it can show up in hiding, it can show up in any number of ways that maybe you don't even recognize. Again, this is a choice to remain ignorant and remain what you think may be safe. Well, the truth is it's not. You can't wake, you might wake up one day and find that things are totally different than you thought or assumed they were. And now what? Now what do? You start blaming? Do you start cowering? Do you start down a path of depression, maybe even numbing in some kind of a way? A decision not to look, to not name, to not engage in what is actually real and the information that's available to you. It requires you to adjust yourself. Not only that, but in recognizing that in you adjusting, you may be faced with some pushback from family, from friends. And I think that's the biggest thing that can keep you stuck, even when you know something is wrong for you, because you're afraid of what everybody else is going to say, what everybody else is going to do. Well, is that how you want your life? I had a conversation with my husband the other day. We're here to be better and do better. Well, ignorance is never a path to being better or doing better. And if you really are saying, well, I don't want to be better or do better, I'm fine. And that, I think that's a tone that runs throughout the human condition right now. Again, that's a prime example of willful ignorance. You don't want to deal with what is actually real or true. You don't even want to know, because you want to be in your little bubble. You want to stay in your little box where you feel like you're comfortable and safe. Shit changes anyway, whether you do that or not. So, the part that people are usually avoiding, I think, the change in awareness. They don't want to be aware. It's about what you're choosing not to see, even if it's right in front of you. because it scares you in some way. And that's okay to admit, whether you take this and run with it or not, totally up to you. It doesn't affect me at all. I know that for myself, I'd rather make all my choices and decisions based on what's real and right in front of me, the way things actually are, as the way I'd prefer them to be. Sure, would we all prefer things to be different? Absolutely. But until we can recognize that and accept it and say, okay, well, what's right in front of me? What's actually real and true that I can make an actual choice about? Whether you, again, choose it or not is totally up to you, but you don't get to just choose it. You have to act on it. Again, completely up to you. I'm really only here to kind of point out the obvious. And for maybe some of you, it's not obvious. To me, I like the obvious. I like what's out there, and I like to base all of my choices on what's true and real. Otherwise, you're making a choice on illusion, things that aren't even true. And how is that really a choice? And you may even act on them, but that's really not, I guess it's part of, unfortunately, we can make the excuse. It's part of the human condition. Well, again, I believe the human condition is actually here. We're here to be better, to do better than whatever the last go round was. That's my own personal belief. But, the decision not to look, the decision not to name, the decision not to even peek outside the box, is just keeps you stuck in this revolving door. Somewhere, somebody always has to be kind of the brake. The one that says, you know what, this stops here. You get to choose whether you're the one or not. It might feel like too much for you to do it. But hey, what if you start with just one little tiny step? Totally up to you. I'm not here to try to help you be better. You have to choose that for yourself. What I like to do is just kind of point out I'm very practical person, and I like things practical. I like to simplify things and not make them so complicated, which is part of what I do here. I like to speak in plain language, not some kind of highbrow tone that, tones people completely out. And if you're tuned out, totally up to you. So, but you get to make all the choices. You want to be willfully ignorant. If you want to stay ignorant, completely your decision. But then, if you find yourself complaining and railing against the way things always were, well, then, you do have the option to choose differently. So completely up to you. So this was just kind of a segue from the last video in the very first series on the Audacity Factor. And I just wanted to kind of follow up because I really see it as it goes beyond the narcissistic epidemic. And this actually can be part of that. It's another symptom of what's happening today when people rail against and romanticize the past and rail against change. But change is inevitable. So why not work with it as opposed to trying to work against it? And then you can choose a direction as opposed to a direction being chosen for you. So anyway, I just wanted to drop this here. You can take it or not, totally up to you. But I will see you next time on the Audacity.